but no, it's pretty wide open now. So.
Okay. I remember last year, Memorial Weekend, we went camping at Split Rock.
Yep.
And as we were driving through Duluth, there was just this weird cloud, because there were huge chunks of ice still out because it was so cold.
Yep.
And it was so weird, you know? It was weird that it felt like summer, and yet there was still
it's beautiful.
Ice cubes out in the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're ready. Are you guys ready?
Better for hands on the table or?
Sure. Okay. All right, so they're ready for us. I'll just count down, and that way they know. And okay, 5, 4, 3. Welcome, Senator Wiger.
Thank you.
So we're going to try this again because I forgot my first question. Okay, 5, 4, 3. Welcome, Senator Wiger.
Thank you very much.
So your committee recently heard testimony about the teacher shortage in Minnesota. What does your caucus propose to do about that shortage?
Number of things. We have a crisis in Minnesota in terms of the amount of teachers that are available in the classroom. We propose several things. First, we need to provide incentives for people to become teachers. That could be a financial incentive, it could be grants, forgiveness and loans, or a couple of the ideas that we have in our finance bill. We will have suggestions for encouraging paraprofessionals to become teachers as well, a pathway for paras. Additionally, the red tape involved for many teachers that have a license already, perhaps they're from another state that want to teach here. The Office of the Legislative Auditor did a comprehensive report and said we need a sweeping overhaul of the licensing system. And we're going to do that. We're going to have a 12-member bipartisan group that's going to come up with a number of recommendations as suggested by the Legislative Auditor for the upcoming session. So there's financial incentives, there's also some streamlining of the process and other areas, but those would be some of the highlights to address the teacher shortage. Right now, math, science, special education teachers, big shortage. Also for agriculture, career vocational ed. There's over 3,000 of the 58,000 teachers that we have that don't have a full license, and we need to address this. This is very important to provide quality opportunities for our students, to prepare students for the world's best workforce. So huge priority, and we have a number of proposals to address that.
What about alternative pathways to licensure for people who want to make a career change?
Yes, we encourage that, and you need to have the background, and you know, a couple of key things to be a successful teacher is your knowledge of the subject, and then ultimately your ability to connect with students. And the Board of Teaching has a process for doing that. We've encouraged that, and the Way to Grow legislation that we will have in our ultimate finance bill, I'm hoping that'll provide a pathway as well. But we need to provide a lot of additional opportunities for highly motivated, qualified applicants, and that's going to help address the teacher shortage.
So in the press conference, there was mention of QComp and expanding QComp. Can you first explain what QComp is, and then also talk about why it should be expanded?
Yes, QComp refers to rewarding teachers for quality performance. And
so is it an incentive program, essentially?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And actually, former Governor Pawlenty, it was one of the initiatives that he brought forward, and as it rolled out into many of the districts in the state through a lot of discussion, that if you provide adequate training and involve teachers, that the opportunity has been embraced by many. In fact, there's a waiting list now for people wanting to get the additional funds for QComp districts. And we have said we should level the playing field so that all districts are eligible for QComp. So I want to commend Governor Pawlenty for the initiative that he had back then. It's been embraced on a bipartisan basis, and particularly a number of rural districts would like to see this. The training and development is a key part of having the world's best workforce trained by teachers that have had the opportunity to have successful training. And the QComp works very closely with that goal. So we'd like to see the cap. Right now there's a cap on how many districts are eligible to get it. Districts want to get on this. It's just a matter of we don't have enough funds. Okay. We will have additional incentives for districts to participate. Also, I want to thank Senator Leroy Stump for his leadership on this area, and it is a high priority.
At the press conference, there was also mention of continuing teacher development. Why is developmental programs for teachers continuing on? Why is that important?
Getting training and development for all people, whatever your profession, your skill set might be. If you're an electrician, a plumber, a doctor, a lawyer, you need to have an ongoing program to develop your skills. And we do have staff development funds that are available now, but when we rolled out the evaluation law a few years ago, ultimately on a bipartisan basis, it set in motion a comprehensive evaluation system for teachers and principals. Again, it's a part of our goal to have the world's best workforce. You need to have great teachers. Great teachers need the tools, the additional training and development to get them there. And so this has been a top priority, concern expressed by teachers that say, yes, we want to improve, but to get those tools, we need to provide the training to do that, just as you would want to get additional training for perfecting your skills, your craft. So it's a priority, and not only have the teachers asked for this, the school boards as well. So it's a priority. That's why we called that out in our earlier announcement of priorities.
Okay. You've mentioned it several times now, the world's best workforce. I just heard about it, I think the first time about a month ago. Can you talk about what that is, what that means for Minnesota schools?
Yes, it means we are competing in a global marketplace, and we in Minnesota want to send a very strong signal to the world that we're preparing the world's best workers. We have a number of benchmarks that we use to see how we're doing. The first one, are students ready for kindergarten? And if they are ready for kindergarten, they're very likely to ultimately graduate.
Sure.
And if not, it could spell a need for additional remediation programs. So big emphasis for world's best workforce in the benchmark that you're ready for K.
So does this involve preschool?
Yes.
Okay.
We have a number of programs in early education, and I can expand on that, but on the world's best workforce, the first benchmark is ready for K. Then we have another benchmark, and that's our students proficiently reading at the end of third grade, a key milestone in that journey. And then we ask ultimately, did the student graduate? We have just over 80% now that are graduating. We want 100%. And when we say graduate, we also mean, are they college and or career ready? And so those basic benchmarks are in the world's best workforce. We also ask districts to report on what's being done to close the achievement gap so that all students are lifted up in this formula, which ultimately has the goal for those students competing for jobs that they're going to be college and or career ready. That's what the world's best workforce is all about. And I want to pay tribute to Representative Paul Marquardt, who led the charge in the House, and we embraced that in conference committee on a number of these goals. And now it's a key part of our accountability for the education system of Minnesota.
So making sure that all third graders can read at grade level.
Yes.
Is there a system in place for those who can't so that they get brought up to that third grade reading level? How does that exactly work?
Okay. Well, right now we have proficiency tests, and through the Minnesota Comprehensive Assessment, and it starts third grade and it goes, they're mandatory third through eighth, and there's another one at the secondary level, but reading is so important. And the majority of students are reading proficiently, and you can actually find out for each school or charter school, each public or charter school in the state, you can see how the school is doing. But most importantly, if a student is not at grade level for that time when they were tested, then there are programs that are in place, and we have, the Reading Corps works with students actually even in the preschool, and having those persons work. We have literacy aid that's available for school districts to use. In the allocation for the funds that the school district works with the principals and site-based teams, they can allocate additional funds for reading specialists. There's lots of persons employed as reading coaches now, and it's up to the district in terms of how they want to best meet that goal. In this year's Senate policy bill, we have a provision that says if you're not reading proficient by the end of third grade, it will formally have a personalized learning plan put in place. This is new ground, and it's asking for the parent, the teacher, the students, to get on a program that's going to get you to proficiency. We understand there's a number of challenges that might have to be worked on, but it's so significant that you are proficient in reading, or you're going to have
reading is the basis of all learning after that point. That's how you acquire knowledge.
And so that's why we call that out at third grade, and we do have a provision in our policy bill, which just passed unanimously, and I want to thank Senator Pratt, who carried the bill, and I co-authored it, but it calls for that additional intervention, and it's saying there's an issue, a concern, an opportunity to put together a personalized learning plan, and that's what we have in place, and hopefully will pass.
Does any of these programs, proposed legislation, involve increased testing? There's been so much criticism of how much our kids are getting tested. Or does it work with the current system?
Yes, it would work within the system. We need to have better testing. I would argue there is too much testing right now, and we have a number of legislative proposals to address the testing issue at not only President Obama, but at levels throughout the state. Governor Dayton and bipartisan legislators have said we need to get a better handle on testing, not the just testing to get a number, but is it transparent? Is it trustworthy? Is it going to help the student, the parent, the teacher? We've Education Minnesota, they came out with a number of great recommendations, and they're being sponsored by Senator Susan Kent, and a bill which is largely embraced in our policy bill, which will provide information about the testing schedule, what's going to be done. It has whistleblower protections if someone complains about the system. We had a breakdown in the computer systems last year.
Yes, that was well publicized. Yes, and
there was large fines that were assessed, but sadly, teachers were saying, what good is this information anyway if we're going to get it months later? And in some cases, teachers aren't even aware of what the results were in this test, and the student may have been moved on or at a different school. And so we want to have a better handle on this in terms of the testing procedures that are being done. Senator Wickman has a bill with bipartisan authorship again, which would call for some innovation zones in testing. Bloomington School District and others are asking for this. There's No Child Left Behind was modified with the Every Student Succeeds Act, and this will encourage alternative testing. That still gets us at proficiency, but better ways of doing it. Senator Wickland has a bill which would encourage that. Another bill that we have time, I'll mention.
Just one more thing, yes.
Senator Jensen has a bill which would have the department study whether we could have a test at the secondary level that would say if you're college career ready. Perhaps it would be the ACT or the SAT, but a nationally normed test, and we could do that instead of the current Minnesota comprehensive test. Colleges don't really use that. They look at the ACT or the SAT, and so we're hoping we'll get better testing through the result in that.
Very good, Senator Wiger. I thank you so much for stopping by today.
Well, it's a pleasure. If anyone should have a question on what the committee is doing, if a suggestion, please give me a call. My cell phone is 651-770-0283.
Thank you.
Thank you.